Welcome to Hope Shot Recovery. I'm Sonia, and I'm so glad that you can join me today. Today, I have a very special guest on, a good friend of mine. She has a podcast. She is an author. She is an amazing, badass woman, Tammy Lynn Connors. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Sonia, thank you for asking me. It's such a pleasure. I enjoy doing this so much, just sharing our hope with everybody.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to have Tammy tell her story today. But before we do that, Tammy, can you tell them about your book and your podcast and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So last year in March, on my 18-year sobriety date, March 9th, I launched a podcast called Hope, Helping Other People Evolve. And what I do with that podcast is I interview people that have been through a struggle to get to a strength. And my only mission and vision with that is that someone might hear their story and they're at home and they feel like they're struggling alone. And maybe they'll hear Sonia's story or my friend Jamie's story or AJ's story. And that day they'll be like, oh, if they got through their struggle, I can get through this today. And maybe they'll just walk outside and take a breath of fresh air and know that they can get through it. So that's my podcast. It's been amazing. I have 81 episodes now. So it's been moving right along. And then I am also a co-author in a book. It is called The Turning Point, Faith, Failure, and Success, The Turning Point. It's the third edition in the Faith, Failure, Success series. So I'm super blessed to be a part of that. But also I have written my own book of my story of hope. And I'm working on editing it right now. And I'm really pushing to have it published by December 31st. So yeah.
That's awesome. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you, Sonia. So are you, girl. I love watching you. But that's what we're meant to do, right? I mean, we get in recovery and then some people just stop and think they can't live life anymore. And I feel like when you're living life and you're living it out loud and you're just trying to help people, that's when you become the light to the world.
Absolutely. So true. Okay. So do you want to tell us your story?
Absolutely. My story is, it started most probably like everybody else in addiction. You start at a young age, you don't feel like you fit in, different things are happening in your life. And I'll just go to like the age of 13 is where I'll go, because that's when it really changed my life. My father was an alcoholic, addict, very abusive to my mother. He ended up being very, very sick for quite a few years. And in February of 1978, when we had the good old blizzard coming through the north, he got very, very sick because his doctor had told him, do not drink ever again because you're probably going to die. And I recall my dad drinking a 6-pack, and shortly after that, he ended up being taken to the hospital on a snowmobile. That whole entire year was just horrible. Him in and out of hospitals. They were doing shock treatments, like they did to Jack Nicholson in not The Shining, but One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, actual putting that stuff on his brain and shocking him to try to figure out what was really wrong with him. Well, in December 7th, as a matter of fact, he would take really hot baths if he didn't feel good. We had one of those great big old-fashioned bathtubs, and he had taken some opiates that night, and I'm pretty sure he knew that he was going to go, and he actually drowned in our bathtub at 34 years old. At that point in my life, I was 13. I saw his dead body, and I told myself I would never, ever, ever be that alcoholic. Well, let's fast forward a little bit. Age of 13, then, lose my dad. Plus everybody knew the things that he like ambulance at my house all the time. Sometimes he was trying to kill himself. Sometimes he was trying to kill my mom, so my friends all knew that. And then at 13, they're mean, you're crazy, like your dad, and all of this. Well, then I found that crowd that I fit into, the ones that I partied with, the ones that I drank with. So from 13 till probably, till I got married when I was 19, and I got married actually 18 just to get out of the house. I partied a lot with my friends, but I never thought I had a problem. Got married, didn't last very long, got divorced, ran into my best friend from high school who had just got out of prison for the second time at the age of like 22, but I was going to save him. I was going to be the one that was going to change Mr. Scott White. Well, needless to say, he was a lot like my father. He was a crack addict, alcoholic, and very abusive also. I stayed with him for quite a while, from probably 87, I want to say, until I finally left him when my oldest son was 5. So that was like 1994. Through that, as I said, I had a son. My son will be 33 this month. I can't believe it. I'm like, I'm 32. How is he 33? But I had him, my little bundle of joy, Chad. And then we stayed together. I tried so hard, thinking that the baby was going to change him. He already had 2 other children that never changed him. And I ended up getting pregnant again in 1992. And I had my other little bundle of joy, Cody. He was born May 31st of 1992. The scenario of this part was Scott was going to be leaving on December 11th. He was going to be moving to Florida with his grandmother. I was done being beaten. I was done having everything in my house sold. I was done with the drinking. I was just done with all of it. And I was finished. Now, mind you, through all this, I still drank too, but I didn't have a problem in my head. I had no problem, but I didn't abuse it as much then. But, anyways, on December 11th, woke up so excited because he's going to move that day. Like, he's going to Florida with his family and he's staying. My life's about to change. Well, little did I know that my life was really going to change. I woke up, I had to be to work at like noon. I woke up at like 10. I had worked the night before, and Scott was in the kitchen, and I said, "Hey, have you checked on Cody?" And he's like, "No, I don't think he's up yet." Well, my heart sunk into my stomach immediately because he should have been up. And I opened his door and he was blue. He was 6.5 months old and we lost him to SIDS. Talk about a life changer, right? So, but I was a strong one. So, Scott was like, this is either going to make me better or make me worse. And as he's sitting there drinking, and I'm just praying, like, please make it better because I can't do this anymore. So we stayed together 2 more years. I was going to change him and make him better. 2 more years did not. So now we're at like 1994. I'm finally done. I leave. Of course, leaving a domestic violence relationship, you get you're never going to have anybody. You're not worthy. I'm going to find you and kill you. All the things. Well, I was very fortunate. Scott was not so fortunate. He ended up getting locked up for 15 to 30 years in prison from past things that he did. And the judges were just done with him, this last thing that he did. So for me, it was a blessing because he wasn't around anymore. And I was still able to be with his family. I went directly into another relationship right after I left him. A younger guy. He liked to drink a lot, go to NASCAR races. We just partied a lot together. Well, I didn't think of me as an alcoholic again because I was functioning. I worked every day. My son went to school every day. I helped him with his homework, all of the things. And in 1997, I decided to move out from Eric because it was just not going anywhere, right? I wasn't feeling anything. So I worked at a golf course, and this is when my drinking career, I call it, started. Because this is when I started realizing that I had the problem, because before it was like, oh, I just drank with everybody. But now I was drinking every single day if I was at home or not at home. I worked at a golf course. You can drink there, right? Because the bar's right there. Those little bottles of vodka, we had them on our beer carts. And so for 7 years straight, basically, I drank every day. If my eyes were open and I wasn't in the hospital, I was drinking. But I never looked at myself as an alcoholic. I just looked at myself like I was partying with my friends until I think it was year 2000 or 99, maybe. They told me to stop drinking because I had acute pancreatitis. Stop drinking, you're getting sick. So I stopped for a few months, right? Then I started drinking the O'Douls, and then the next thing you know, it's a shot, and then the next thing you know, I'm game on, full-fledged alcoholic again. 2001, I changed my jobs. I started working at a sports bar. Working at the sports bar, of course, I drank all the time. I mean, I knew exactly where I could pour my little bit of vodka with my little shot of Red Bull or Mountain Dew or something and drink it without the camera seeing me. I had all these places figured out. I could go down to the cooler, drink a Mike's Hard Lemonade. I did this every day there for 3 years. I mean, when I think of the insanity of how much I drank and how naive I was to being an alcoholic. I ended up throughout those 3 years being in and out of the hospital quite a bit. I remember the one trip, it was in October of 2003. We were heading on a trip to go on a cruise with my friend Lorna, her 2 kids and my son. And we're leaving from Ohio, Michigan area. We got to Kentucky and I had to be dropped off at the hospital because I was so sick. I mean, Sonia, at this point, it was just the drinking, I was doing the shaking. It was just to stop all that, stop all the withdrawals, and I see people go through withdrawals with different drugs and stuff. And I'm like, I can relate to you, people don't think that alcohol is so damaging because it's okay. Everybody drinks. It's commercials. You go to football games, you do this, you drink. So when you're going through those withdrawals and stuff, people don't really realize that it is like a heroin withdrawal. You are sick, like your body, those sugars and everything. So I get dropped off at this hospital. Now, here's my poor son going on a cruise. He knows them, but not that well, and here I am laying in a hospital bed. Why? Because I drink too much. But, throughout that, they never really said to me again, like, you probably should quit drinking. But that time they said my liver levels were a little high. So in my head now, I'm thinking, oh my God, you're your dad. As I get home and I'm doing shots of Listerine in my mirror because I don't have any vodka in my house at the time. And I need to get to the store, but I'm shaking and puking so bad I can't get there. Wow. So that's in 2003. Fast forward a little bit, 2004. I was kind of dating a guy. We watched the Super Bowl. It was a Super Bowl where Janet Jackson had a little malfunction with her top. I don't remember it, honestly. I just know I was at my work. We were at a party. He ended up breaking up with me that day. I got to his house. I got sick all over his white couch. It was just bad. And at this point I was like, man, this is February though. And I didn't still quit until March. And the reason why I quit was I got fired from my job. It was a Saturday. There was a Saturday night at work and, I went to work drinking like I normally do, going down to the cooler, drinking my drinks. I got off work at 4:00 that day. And, I went downstairs to the bar because that's what I did. And I drank and I drank and I drank. And I remember it had to have been a little bit after midnight, sitting in my boss. It's so crazy that I can remember. And I think God puts things for us to remember for a reason. I remember sitting in my boss's office and two of my friends there. And the one said, we have to call an ambulance now. I think she's going to die. At that point, I probably was, and I didn't care if I died at that point. I was wheeled out on a stretcher, taken to the hospital. Now, mind you, we live in a little town, so everybody knows me. Everybody knows my son. He has 60 kids in his graduating class. So here I go. They take me to the hospital. My blood alcohol is 0.399. If most people that are in recovery probably know, about blood alcohol limits. To drink and drive, 0.08 is the legal limit. Like after that, you're done, you get a DUI. So now I'm like quadruple that, right? 0.399. Anything over 0.4, you can go into seizures, your heart can stop, and you could just really die. And by the grace of God, I didn't. They gave me IVs, sent me home. But when they sent me home, Sonia, they never said, now, mind you, at this time, I weighed about 85 pounds. My cheeks are sunken. My eyes are yellow. I am a mess. And they just sent me home with a piece of paper that says blood alcohol level 0.399, refrain from drinking. Not, maybe you should go seek some help. Let's try to get you in a treatment center. Nothing like that. So they're sending me home while my house is too far away. And I'm definitely not going to my mom's because I can't drink there. I'm still detoxing. So I went to another friend's house who I knew she had alcohol. Now, I say that this was God's intervention with me this day because I drank from 5 a.m. until I had to work that day as a waitress at 4. And I just continually was going to my friend's refrigerator, drinking whatever she had. It didn't even matter. I even chugging wine, and I don't even like wine, but I just needed that alcohol in me. I went to work that day as a waitress. I managed most days, but that day was my waitressing day. I was a hot mess. I can still remember some of the tables I waited on. And I ended up getting taken home and getting fired from my job. I say that God intervened with me there because if I would have not went to work that day, I would have never got fired that day. I would have kept going and probably been dead within 3 weeks is what I really truly believe. And so I wake up the next morning, which is March 9th. And I call my bosses and I'm like, you can't fire me. I'm a single mom. I'm a hard worker. I work 60, 70 hours for you guys, right? I'm pleading everything. And they're like, Tammy, we just can't have you here like that. So devastated. Now I had enough to pay my month's rent. That's about it. Cause I never saved money because I spent it on everything else. Mostly my son, just trying to make him be happy, let him live his life. So anyways, that morning when I got fired, I lived in a big farmhouse. My son was in his room, and all I could think about was that 13-year-old girl that found her dad dead. And how horrible of a person would I be if my son found me dead at 14 years old? How horrible would I be because his dad is incarcerated? He doesn't even have a dad. How horrible would I be that says, hey, go live with your grandparents that didn't do a great job raising either one of us? How horrible of a person would I be? And at that moment, I laid on the floor, I kicked, I screamed, I yelled, and I pleaded to God, please help me. God puts people in our lives for reasons. I worked with a girl at the golf course who her parents were pastors. I remember they would walk in that golf course and I would have that shame over me, like, gosh, they probably think I'm the worst person in this earth. I went to her mom's door and I knocked on her door, and thinking, of course, that she thinks I'm the worst person in the world. And Nancy opened the door and said, come in, sit down at my table. She prayed with me. She talked to me. She gave me a Bible, told me to read the Psalms every day. So day 1, I read Psalms 1, 11, 21, 31, 41. Day 2, I read Psalms 2, 12, 22, and did that every day. The blessings from my ex was I had 2 amazing boys, and he showed me AA. So I knew where AA was, and I knew where I needed to go at that time of my life. I went to 3 AA meetings a day for 6 weeks. And I went to 3 different friends' house every single day. The same 3 people, though, same 3 houses every single day for 6 weeks. These people, I give them a shout out a lot because I would knock on their door, and every time they would just open the door and say, come in. Sometimes I'd laugh with them. Sometimes I'd cry with them. Sometimes I wouldn't say anything, but they never judged me. And we live in such a judgy world that it was just so, it means so much to me to this day that they never were like, Jesus, here she is again, right? They never rolled their eyes. At least I didn't see them do it. No, I just So that was the beginning of my sobriety. Here I am. That's my story. That's it. And then I got sober, and then I sober. I've never looked back. It's not, I remember how sick I was the day I quit. I remember and I'm just being true here. Like, I remember the yellow bile I puked. I remember the shakes. I remember how hopeless and worthless. And I felt like I didn't mean anything to anybody. But then I remembered I did mean something to my son. I was his everything. And 33 years here he is now, and we went out to lunch yesterday, and it's just, I'm able to have those conversations with him. I'm able to talk about what he went through with me drinking. Because for years I would be like, he didn't even know I really drank. This is after I've been sober. And he pointed out to me about 6 years ago, he's like, you really believe that? I'm like, well, yeah, I was at work all the time. He's like, Mom, you weren't at work all the time. And I was like, damn it, because I didn't want to be that, right? I wasn't that typical alcoholic or addict. I even was like, I never stole. I never really lied. Okay. I stole every day at work. I was drinking their vodka every single day, so you picture yourself like, well, that's not me. I'm functioning in society. So I came to the realization probably it's really been a journey. So, sober, living life, doing things. I like to say this to people. We don't walk outside and our life is beautiful, Sonia. We don't walk outside. And we talk about this. There's no big bubble around me. There's no big bubble around Sonia that says, hey, we're going to protect them with everything so they don't even ever think about doing anything again, right? It doesn't work like that. I want to say that in the last 2 years probably has been my biggest growth in my recovery and me knowing my worth and knowing who I am. 2012, I always like to talk about this, and I don't talk about anything that happened to me in death or anything as you poor girl. I speak it out because I want people to know you can get through things. December or February of 2012. So I said that my ex had 2 other kids, Heather and Nicholas. So when Scott and I got together, Nicholas was 18 months and Heather was a little bit over 3. So they were part of my life forever. I actually married I call her my bonus daughter. I married her last year in December, her and her husband. And that's how close we are. Like I've always been there. In February of 2012, her brother Nicholas had lost a friend on a Wednesday. Friend passed away. They were all out at the bar the next day. The bar got really crazy. Somebody had his car keys. The person that had his car keys said, I can't get you home in time because you got to work in the morning. Gave him his car keys. He pulled out, went his usual way home, and he missed a turn, and we lost him in a single car alcohol accident.
Wow.
26 years old, one of the best people I've ever met in my life. He was a simple man. That was his song, but we lost him. And through that loss, though, I didn't have to drink or drug. And that's, that's huge. I mean, it was 10 years ago. So I was just still, I was only 8 years in. And when I say only 8 years in, it sounds like a lot of time, but there's so much healing that we have to do. And I didn't have to drink or drug. So after that time, do you want me to keep going here?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we were on a time limit.
Nope.
After that time, so it was 2012, 2013, my mom decided to divorce my stepfather. They'd been married since 1979. She married him like right after my dad died, which was fine because my dad was so abusive. He was treating her good. Anyways, then was mentally abusive. She left him and she was raising my niece and nephew because my sisters are still a practicing alcoholic addict. And they were 11 and 12. And I was like, I got this. Let's all move in together. Oh my goodness. Hard. Like my 12-year-old niece, like she was broken. She was a cutter. She was just everything. And it was so hard for those years. I was like, my God, what did I do? What did I do? People told me don't do it. I didn't listen. I was going to be the savior. So from 2013 to 2020, all I did was take care of people. So really my whole life, that's all I've done. My sister moved in with me when she was 14 and I had just gotten married. So I just like boom, boom, boom. So I never really, even though I was sober and I was happy, I was never really working on the internal of me because everything was always me taking care of things. So in 2020, I was actually going to start my podcast then. On Valentine's Day, my best friend, who had been clean for 4.5 years, took a Percocet off the street. It was fentanyl. We lost him. 34 years young. It was like, he was 34. His daughter was 13 at the time, and he had a 6-year-old son. So it was almost the same scenario that I went through. I remember looking at his daughter like, oh my gosh, I know how you feel right now. And so I lost him. And then April 3rd of that year, one of my really good friends in Arizona, her ex-husband-to-be, walked up to her car and shot her 14 times and killed her. And then in August of 2020, my mom passed away. So 2020 was a shit show for all of us. It started out with Kobe and Gianna, and it just plummeled right for everybody. But through all that, I never had to drink. But through all that, now my mom's gone, who I was taking care of. My nephew's living with his girlfriend. My niece is now down in South Carolina, and I'm by myself. And what do I have to do now? I have to learn who I am, who I really was. I packed up my bags in February of 2021, and I moved to Arizona. Like me, my truck, and here I go. I had friends out there. Whoa, let me tell you what that drive was like. I've never cried so much my entire life because I internally had to really sit with myself at that point. And I think that's something that you just said earlier to me, how busy you are. So you're so busy, and we keep so busy that time that we have to sit with ourselves is different. It's a different thing, And so through that, though, my growth has been so much. Like I've learned my worth again. I just started back at the casino here in Toledo. I came back for a big sign-on bonus and stuff, but I'm different. So the way people talk to me now, and I express who I am now, they're like, wait, I would have never expected you to talk like that. I'm like, I've changed. And it's not a bad change, but I know my worth now, and I know my boundaries before I let people still walk all over me. So I'm just grateful, blessed, happy. I'm so live out loud with life. Like I love to dance and I go dancing all the time, and I just am me. And it's so important to just be you and quit worrying about what the other people think of you. That's their business, not your business, you
That's
know?
right.
That takes a lot, Sonia, because we know with our addiction, we hide and mask everything, all the pain, all the things that we feel about ourselves. And then when we get clean and sober, man, life hits. Like it's still life, right? Now we don't have the medication and all the things to cover it up. We just gotta go with it. So yeah, that's me, 18 and a half years sober.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love your story and I just love you. You are so authentic and strong. And after everything that you've been through, like you've turned that all into a message and grown through it. And I'm glad that you kept talking, because I was going to ask you about some of these things, because we've done a lot of like time together doing lives and stuff. So I've heard your story before. So I'm glad that you touched on those things, like especially like sitting by yourself and like not drinking no matter what. Like you are proof that no matter what happens, you don't have to pick up a drink or a drug. Right. And I can relate, because, you know, I had a time when we first moved into our first apartment where I had to be by myself because I was on house arrest and I couldn't go anywhere and there's nobody around. And it was really hard for me in the beginning, you know, but I grew through it. But still today, you know, sometimes like we were just talking about, I get really, really, really busy and it's like everything's cool out here, but then it starts to become real messy in here. So I just love that you shared that so much.
Yeah.
So,
can I add something to that busyness real quick?
Yes, please.
I had somebody tell me this, and I'm pretty sure it was my pastor, Nancy. One time I was talking about how busy I was, and I was just like, I wasn't going to drink or anything. I just wasn't me. And she said, you got to watch busyness, because Satan knows. He knows to keep you busy, because then you forget about the things that you were doing, right? Wow. And there's times when I would get up in the morning and I didn't pray, I didn't meditate, I didn't read my devotional, you know, I didn't do the things that I do in the morning because I was so busy, right? Or maybe I pick my phone up and then my whole day gets busy. So I had to learn. And I've talked to a lot of people like this, like they get so busy and then they're like, and I don't know which way I'm going and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, did you practice the pause? Did you practice the pause? And I've had to really learn that, because I was the same way, like boom, 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 boom. And then I'm exhausted, but I never kept myself in check where I needed to be. So I think that's really important to think, because I don't like to give Satan that much power, but he knows. He knows how to keep us like, boom, boom. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, you forgot to edit your book. Oh yeah. Now I'm like, there's nothing stopping me. I take it to work with me. My breaks, I do it because I'm going to get that published. But when that busyness comes, just don't forget, Sonia, to, you know, make sure you take your time for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, because it's something I've been dealing with lately. I've been sharing about it at meetings, that like just the exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion that comes, you know? So I'm trying to be mindful of that moving forward.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'm so glad that you came and told your story. And if I'm going to drop all of Tammy's social links, her podcast, a link to her book, so you guys can follow her recovery journey. She's an inspiration. She shares a lot and empowers and advocates for other people. So you guys have got to check her out. So thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you back again soon.
Have a great day.